Hey, happy Easter, everybody. So tomorrow we're going to go live with Dale Clevenger, and I am really excited to talk to Dale. Last time we talked, it felt like we only had enough time to get through some of his story, and I want to get through more of Dale's story. We barely got to the part where he joined the Chicago Symphony. So tomorrow we're going to start with where Dale left off, and we're going to get some more stories about his time in the Chicago Symphony, and what it was like to record all those great recordings with Maestro Schulte. And we're also going to talk about what it was like to make recordings in the area and do jingles, and all of his teaching, work with the young players at Civic and Northwestern. I mean, I know he taught Bill VerMeulen, he taught Eric Ruske, he taught Todd Bauermaster. Yeah, Dale was like one of those guys who everyone studied with. So I'm actually waiting for Dale to join the chat here, and we're just going to do a practice again. So Dale is new to Instagram, and he said he was going to try to join on his computer. I don't know if that's possible. If anyone, knows how to do this and is friends with Dale and they want to call and help him out, that'd be awesome. But I think he's going to have to join with his phone. So any chance, yeah. Happy Easter, everybody. I'm really great to see you all, and really happy to see you all. Okay, so let's see if we can find Dale, and if we can, then we'll bring him into the chat just as a way to, test it out for tonight or for tomorrow. So let's see. I've been watching. I haven't seen Dale join yet, so let's see if we can find him. There's Hannon. Hey, Hannon, how are you doing? Let's see who else is on. All right, we've got Q0601, Horn Daily, Yuri Hammer 1987. Hey, Lori SVB, Lauerhorn. Hey, Bob Lauer, what's up, man? Great to see you. We're waiting for Dale. Dale's just gonna try to join just to test it out. If we don't get Dale on this way, we're gonna try again. So Mark Rauch joined 237. Let's see who else we've got. Simon Stone Morris. Hey, Simon. Little Tally Fox joined. Pablo Huma de Trompa. Great to see you guys. GC5824164. Hey, guy. We've got E Hoop, Clark Bone. I'm just waiting for Dale to join. So I am going to guess that Dale needs to join on his phone. So we're going to sign off now. Ricardo, great to see you. We're just kind of testing out the technology with Dale. We're walking him through it. So in any event, this is a learning process for us all. So if you guys want, let's think of some questions. Let's ask Dale some questions now. I mean, he loves to, share his information. He loves to talk about, the horn and music. So we're going to, try to find Dale, and I'll be right back. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so it looks like Dale might be watching. I'm going to try to see if I can join Dale with our call. I don't see Dale. Do you guys see Dale? Okay, we're looking for Dale Clevenger horn. Okay, I'm going to ask him to join. I've got him on FaceTime. Hey, guys, thanks. I appreciate y'all joining and helping out with this. This is just a test of the Instagram Live for Dale. So I'm going to just talk to Dale. Okay, so we're back. We were hanging out with Dale, and we're trying to get Dale to join the conversation right now. So if you guys have questions you want to ask Dale, he's going to join, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind answering a few questions. He's done everything. I mean, he's recorded over 700 recordings. He's played with the Chicago Symphony for 43 years as principal horn. And just the way that he said things, when he played, it was just basically time stopped. It was that's the way how that solo goes. And it's he really truly had something to say. So yeah, I'm really excited for you guys to get a chance to hang out with him. So write in something if you guys are curious about what, Dale's philosophy on horn is, or how he, talks about the technique. If you guys are interested in, how I think about music, if you guys want to know about the career path on how to get. Hey, there's Dale. There he is. Okay, let's go live with Dale.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, there you are. You're perfect. Hey, easy
All right.
peasy.
All
So
right.
I don't know why it wouldn't join on your computer screen.
Yeah, I want to be able to do it on the computer because I want to do it on the computer tomorrow. So I'm going to try again and see that there's something that didn't come up that I should have done because I did it. It asked me if I wanted to join.
Yeah.
And on the computer, it did not ask me that.
Well, I didn't see your
Wait a minute, there it is. Done because I did it. It asked me if I wanted to join.
Yeah.
And
there you are.
There
you are, Dale. You're watching yourself. So this is Dale.
Yeah.
So real quick, can I FaceTime you? You're watching yourself.
Are you going to FaceTime me on the computer or phone?
Let's FaceTime after the conversation, but you have to stop the conversation on the computer screen because it's giving us like the same conversation in lag. So
all right.
Would you just say hi to everybody and just like, kind of just we're really excited to talk to you tomorrow and to have a conversation about horn, and we want to hear this time. We really want to hear about your time in the Chicago Symphony.
Oh, okay.
We want to hear like what it was like for you to join on the very first day.
Yeah.
And just like kind of like hear some of those memories of like that first European tour, coming back. I want to hear. I mean, obviously, like what it was like to work with, Carl Geyer, and how you met Jerry Leshniuk, some of those stories, and how you started Steve Lewis off in business and why.
Okay.
It's those are some of the things I'm really interested, but also whatever the audience is interested in as well.
Yeah, but I should be able to do it on the damn computer.
We probably have some younger people like there's always the saying, if you
Robert can help me.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So maybe Robert could, because Robert's really good with Robert Fox.
But if my computer says live, I should be able to punch that, and we should be able to do it, right?
I would think. I have never done Instagram live on the computer though. So
you're on the telephone.
Honestly, I always just do it on my phone. So,
I see.
Yeah. So that's kind of that's kind of always. I think you're able to watch it on the computer, but I don't think we're able to actually join the conversation on the computer.
Well, I will ask Robert, and he will help me. And if it's not able to do it, he'll tell me. And if it's able, then we'll talk on the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is great. I mean, how easy was that for you to join the conversation though? This time, no problem.
Duck soup, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this is a great place to sign off. Do you want to, say anything about tomorrow's conversation, or?
No, you just ask me what you want, and I'll talk. And if I go askew, you bring me back to wherever you want me to be.
I just want stories, man. I just want to hear, just getting to hear from you about your career and getting to hear about, some of your. Dale, there's a question from Nate Golden.
Yeah.
Because Dale, what were you feeling on your CSO audition day, and how did you prepare for it?
Well, I had been in audition mode for a long time, because I was taking every solo horn audition that came up, and I actually auditioned in May of '65 for Chicago, in Chicago, and I did not get it. I made the finals, but I didn't make it, and they didn't hire anybody.
Wow. And
from that point on, Frank Brauch, the acting associate, continued to play first horn. But he didn't want to. He didn't. That's not something I didn't know that then. But I found out later once I got in the orchestra that then it came up that they were going to have an audition again in January, and I knew about it, and I planned to go, but then there's that story about Wallenstein hearing me play the Brahms Third, and him remembering that, and then asking me. He called me up on the phone. I didn't see him, he said, aren't you the young man who played the Brahms for Maurice Econ when he was late? I said, yes, sir, I am. And he says, well, there's audition in Chicago for solo horn. You must go. I said, Maestro, I already went once. They didn't take me. So he says, I have spoken to them. So, I mean, in other words, he recommended. And then about the same time, I made the decision to go. And I told Stokowski that I was going to go to audition for Chicago. He says, I hope you don't make it. And he says, I'm kidding, of course. Would you like an audition, later a recommendation? I said, of course, from you, my gracious. And so I had Wallenstein and Stokowski sort of in my corner. And I just made a commitment to go and play the next audition. Mm. Well, as it turned out, I was the only one who played that day. Wow. They had arranged it so that I played on a Monday morning rehearsal. They stopped having those Monday morning rehearsals, by the way. I played on a Monday morning rehearsal, and I played at 9:30. They kept the orchestra off stage, and you know, that's when who was conducting?
Was it Martineau?
No, Martineau was in the audience, but the guest conductor, Andre Previn. Oh, and we played they asked me to play. I played for 25 minutes, every audition piece you could think of. And finally my lip gave out. I was just tired. Right in the middle of Mendelssohn, Midsummer Night's Dream. And they knew it. They knew that, you know, I had played a long time. And so I figured that I couldn't play through it, that I'd be done. But they came back and asked me, said, well, look, we have a rehearsal now at 10 o'clock. Could you stay and play the first two movements, play part of the rehearsal? I said, okay, yes, I can. I said, what's the piece? Tchaikovsky Fifth. I said, oh, okay. So Previn conducted. I sat down and played through it, and Frank Brock was sitting next to me, and he assisted me. And then after I played the second movement, the beginning and all of the movement, you know, then they told me they went on a break and told me that would be all, and I could fly back home, fly back to New York. But that was really middle of January. It was very cold, and I got a taste of Chicago winter then. And then, you know, they called me the following Wednesday, 2 days later, and told me that, you know, they would like for me to be the new solo horn in Chicago.
Wow.
And, you know, still, when I think about it, it hit me like a shock, and I was dumbfounded. I just fell down in my apartment and cried. Literally. I couldn't believe it. This was the dream of a lifetime, and they actually wanted me to do it. So they said, how soon can you get here? And I told them I had some things to do, and to some commitments that I had to do, and I could come and be ready to play February the 6th. Also a Monday morning rehearsal. And curiously enough, they had a Monday morning rehearsal and then a train to Milwaukee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I took the train and went up there with them. And, you know, because I'm now first horn in Chicago. And I played the rehearsal, and I remember distinctly what it was, every piece. And I can tell all this tomorrow morning. And,
yeah, absolutely.
But the big piece, of course, was the Frank Martin Concerto for 7 winds, timpani, percussion, and strings. And I sight read that my first rehearsal.
Wow.
I actually also sight read
that is not an easy piece to sight read.
The Mahler Kinderton Lieder. And that was on the concert also. So I played Brahms' Tragic Overture, Kinderton Lieder, Intermission, Frank Brout played another piece by Henze, and then I played the last piece was the Martin. And in 2 weeks, we played that week, and then in 2 weeks we went on a month's tour of the East Coast, starting in Miami and finishing in New York City.
Wow.
So I got a taste of touring. We played the Martin 24 times.
Wow. Unbelievable. And when did you record it? Like, where's the recording from?
After we got back from the tour, we recorded it, and all recordings from the moment I got in the orchestra until the early 90s. So for 30 years, all recordings were dedicated sessions. So it was all extra money, time, and so on. And, the week after we got back from tour, we recorded that and several other things with several recordings with Martineau. And they're all available, I understand now, in the, in the little store next door to the, next door to the hall. But that was just the beginning of and I hit the ground running, and I had to. It just I had no choice.
Yeah.
You'll do the same whenever you start back. It's going to be that's the way a tour is. That's the way recordings are. But all the time that I was there from the beginning, they were taping every concert for radio, and all of those would play. We played the concert on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, sometimes Sunday, and it was about 15 years before they added the Tuesday night concerts. But we did every concert Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And all of those were recorded for radio, and on the radio, they only were a week or 2 behind. So whatever we did would be on the radio in 1 week or 2 weeks. See?
Wow.
But all of those tapes, all of those concerts were in the in the files.
Yes.
And they later started making recordings out of those.
Wow.
So, I mean, once in a while we would have a dedicated session, but they found out it was cheaper, and the orchestra played just as well in concerts. And with all the new equipment that they had, it was no longer analog; it was digital. They could make the orchestra sound any way they wanted to.
Yeah.
Without having a dedicated session. In other words, a separate where we go somewhere or do it in orchestra hall. And so we made a little less money, but they still paid us for as though we recorded in a dedicated session.
So Chicago was almost like a recording orchestra. With all the recordings they put out.
I would say safely every 2 weeks we had a dedicated session, or 2 or 3.
Wow.
And they just plan it, we have a Friday afternoon concert or evening, we'd have recording sessions the Friday morning or Friday morning and afternoon.
We have one quick question, and then I'll let you get on. Well, first of all, someone's wishing you Happy Easter. It's OMDRN. So Omdurn, thank you. Happy Easter to you too. And then Horn User is asking, he says, crying after winning the dream job. That's remarkable. My question is, at the highest level, did you ever take another audition? Without naming any names, did you ever take did your colleagues take other auditions as well?
My colleagues, no. I can't think of anybody in the horns in my section who ever took an audition to leave the Chicago Symphony.
I don't think so. I was going to say, I can't. I mean, that's an interesting question, but I mean, now that I'm here, I don't want to go anywhere.
No.
I mean, for real, I feel like I found my home, and I feel like you found the same way.
In the late 70s or something, whenever Mason Jones retired from
Philly.
I got a call from Ormondy and asked me if I was interested. And I said, yes, maestro, I would be interested. But what I would like to do is to know what my salary would be there.
Mm.
And I said, I would be happy to send you a copy of my tax returns to show you what my salary is here. And I just mentioned a figure, and they said, well, that's more than we expected. So Ormondy's words were, you're obviously very happy in Chicago.
Yes.
I got a call from Boston, the same thing, after.
Yeah. Not Catalog.
It was before Kavalowski.
Staliano.
Yeah. And Seiji was conducting, and I talked to Seiji in the summer. He says, why would you want to leave Chicago? And I said, I don't know that I would, but let me talk to a couple of people, and I'll let you know. And so I asked Herseth and Jacobs. I said, do you, separately, of course, do you plan to stay in Chicago and play until you retire from music at all? And both of them says yes. I said, good, I'm staying. And there was I wouldn't play in an orchestra where you have lesser players than that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So I never auditioned anywhere else, but I was asked to come twice.
Yeah. Wow. Well, on that note,
ask if I was interested.
Were you interested?
No, not really.
Dale, it's so great to see you. Man, you make my night every time I get the chance to talk to you. I can't wait till tomorrow morning.
Fine. I'm going to talk to Robert and ask him why this. I'm going to still try. You stay on your phone. I mean, okay. Close off your phone.
Well,
and I'm going to still try to get a hold of you and see why this is working.
Okay. Well, and tomorrow, if not, we'll just have like a music stand. You know, we'll prop your phone on a music stand so it's kind of really, a little bit higher, about the same level it is now, and
no problem.
Can see your whole face, and it'll be perfect.
And I'll comb my hair tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. I'll see you later, Dale. Take care.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, bud.
Have a good night. Good morning, everybody, and we are going live with Dale Clevenger again for our second interview with Dale Clevenger. This is the beginning of CSO Horn Week, and I am proud to start off the Horn Week with a bang and welcome Dale Clevenger to join us and talk about the CSO Horn section, and just kind of like his thoughts about how he started with the horn section in Chicago Symphony and how it developed. And also, I just am really excited to hear his stories about being with the Chicago Symphony. So let's see if we can find Dale here in our list of people. Okay. We're still kind of ironing this out. Let's see if I can find Dale. Okay. There he is. All right. Hey, Dale, good morning. Great to see you.
Good morning. How are you?
Hey, man. Welcome to the chat.
This is good.
So this is CSO Horn Week, and we have all the members of the horn section, or most of the members of the horn section this week that are going to give a chat, and I wanted to kick it off with you.
Okay.
And just could you tell a little bit about what makes the Chicago Symphony horn section so special? And I mean, you kind of built the horn section here. I mean, so to speak, you came in with a fixed group, and you had this sound in your ear of Frank Brout, and then after you kind of like assimilated, you helped shape the sound of the horn section, and then you've hired basically everybody in the horn section came. So.
Yeah. Well, when you arrive in an orchestra, it is a living organism of sound, according to who is already in the orchestra, and you start playing with them. You start listening to them, and they're listening to you, and it's gradually evolving, concert by concert, week by week. The special thing about the Chicago Symphony was I already knew the orchestra by recordings that I listened to 10 years before. So I had a very strong and a good idea about what the orchestra sounded like, what the brass section sounded like. Of course, led by Adolf Herseth, Bud Herseth, and supported on the bottom by Arnold Jacobs, two figures who will go down in history as two of the most wonderful musicians who play brass instruments ever. They aren't, I can't say that they are the best, but they're certainly among the best. It's the best
Some
that I,
some
the
of my
best
favorites.
Pardon me?
Some of my favorites, for
Yeah,
sure.
the best that I ever played with. But when you hear this sound day by day, it sinks into your soul, in your DNA, in your musical DNA, and you start gravitating to that ideal. It's an ideal, and you just hope that you're doing it in a way that makes it you that makes it that you deserve to be there. And you do that by gradual, by concert after concert, and I hit the ground running when I came into Chicago Symphony, because what did I know? I didn't know what to expect, except that I was going into, as Joe Singer said, you're going into a very classy orchestra. And James Chambers said exactly the same thing.
Wow.
So you start off, you play, and you gradually prove yourself day by day. And you recognize that there are people who have been there many, many years, longer than you, who are they're there because they deserve to be there, and they themselves have helped make this brass section a sort of if lack of a better word, an ideal. Now, the horn section had, when I joined it, had 3 young people, as it were, middle 20s, and 3 older people in their 60s. So you automatically know that pretty soon things are going to change. You're going to get new people for, as these people retire, or in one case, one of them died, and then you know right away, it's obvious who you hire has to fit in to this environment somehow. And we made some mistakes. We hired some people whose their potential did not live up to actuality. But that happens everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, that's and you don't know that it's going to happen, but you do the best you can. And we hired Norm Schweikert, and he is like the Rock of Gibraltar, solid. I mean, I never ever thought, is he going to be just with me? Is it going to be just right? Never occurred to me, because it always was, you know. And we fit together. Olberg, the other young fella in the orchestra, Norm was 2 or 3 years older than I, 3 or 4.
Did you know him before he joined the orchestra?
Actually, I did not. I'd heard about him, but I did not know him.
Where was he from?
He's from California.
Okay.
And he studied in Eastman, and with Maurice Seacon, and then with Reynolds. And you know, he was one of those top students there, and he got into the Rochester Eastman Rochester Orchestra, and and then he left that and became a teacher in Interlochen.
Mm.
And that's where
at the academy.
Yeah, and when he was there, he would play in the summers in various orchestras. He'd play first horn, so he knew what it was like to play first horn. But I asked him one time. I said, Norm, why you've played plenty of first horn. Why do you want to audition for second horn? He said, well, I want to be in a good orchestra, and you have to weigh the balance of being in a lesser orchestra and playing first horn, or being in a top orchestra and playing in the section. He said, and anyway, I think my best contribution to music is on low horn.
Wow.
So Norm was a phenomenon, just great. And so he was.
I've heard Mr. Smeltzer, Jim Smeltzer, he always talks about how intelligent Mr. Schweikert was. Just like he has his own editions of scores, I believe, for Bruckner.
Yeah.
He wrote out with beautiful handwritten manuscripts.
No, that's Oldberg.
Oldberg. Okay, excuse me.
Oldberg did the transcribing. The scores of those big pieces were this size, and that's all you could get.
Wow.
This size.
I think I have one on my shelf over, not this shelf.
Very difficult to read.
Yes.
Because the printing is so small. The other size, this size, is what you rent from the publishing house, and you could not buy them. You had to rent them.
Wow.
So it was either this size or this size, and nobody could get a hold of the big ones because they were with the major conductors and major orchestras only when they performed them. Now, so Oldberg thought, wow, I can't read these, and I can't get these, the big ones. I'm going to write out a smaller size, a medium size, which one can read really well and actually not only study, but conduct from.
Wow.
And he wrote out the entire ring.
Come on.
The entire ring in a medium-sized score. And he did that with several big pieces.
And he wrote the tubin parts as well. Those tubin parts, and they're supposed to be transposed and kind of unbelievable.
Oldberg could transpose, but he didn't like to.
Yeah.
So he wrote out all the parts of everything in F. And sometimes first and second are in one key, and third and fourth are in another key. And if that key is something like B flat, he didn't want to sit and play a concert and worry about transposition. He just didn't do it. So, and he got to be extremely good. His scores look like they're published.
They're beautiful.
And in fact, several conductors wanted to get copies of his scores. Wow. Because you could carry them around, you could conduct from them, and you could see it. And
also he fixed mistakes too. That's what I understood. He caught the mistakes that the publishers missed.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we were always fixing mistakes.
Could we back up and just talk about how Mr. Oldberg was hired? Because I believe it was Mr. Schweikert first, and then Mr. Oldberg was next.
No, Oldberg was in the orchestra before I got in the orchestra.
Okay. But he was a younger guy.
By 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
Dick Oldberg was the son, or grandson of a famous conductor then, Arne Oldberg, a composer. And his lineage was pretty high up in the music world. Wow. Because either his father or his grandfather was president of the Chicago Symphony Board. You know, now he didn't get in because of that. He had to pass an audition. Yeah, but Dick Oberg went to Harvard. Wow. And was 1 semester away from getting his medical doctor degree. 1 semester. He chucked it all. There was an opening in Chicago after, I forget his name. I'll think of it in a minute. He went to Texas, the third horn. And Dick played amateur horn, but he played very well. And he left the medical profession, Harvard, blah, blah, blah. Obviously extremely well read and extremely intelligent, like Schweikert. And he auditioned for Chicago Symphony and got in. And he was there when I came, and we became colleagues and friends. Wow. And then we went through a couple of horn players that we went through some auditions where some people were auditioned and they were acceptable, but they chose not to come for a variety of reasons. And
Dan Gingrich says Wayne Barrington might have been one.
Yeah, Wayne Barrington it was. Yeah. Wayne was a wonderful horn player, a wonderful guy, and full of personality and a fantastic teacher. I mean, I knew him well enough, even though he left the orchestra before I got in. But we have quite an array of not only talent but intellect. I mean, Oberg and Schweikert were both smarter than I was. You know? And Oberg knew about music. You could ask him anything about music, and he would know. And if you didn't know, he'd find out really quick. You know,
he's a scholar.
Absolutely a scholar.
Wow.
Yeah. Conductors liked to talk to him because he knew so much. So, I mean, Leinsdorf, I know that he had many, many conversations with Eric Leinsdorf, you know, about pieces and great music and scores and so on and so forth. So anyway, Oberg was in the orchestra. There were the 3 older gentlemen. And as they retired, in the case of Clyde Wedgwood, he died. And then Brauch he was playing everything. Brauch is an unsung hero for me.
Can I interrupt you really quick?
Absolutely.
I recently heard a recording of Frank Brauch on, it's the Helios Overture by Nielsen. I didn't know the piece, but we did it in, I believe, February. And I instantly had heard everyone talk about Mr. Brauch's tone.
What orchestra?
Chicago Symphony.
That's me playing first horn.
On the Helios?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, not Brauch.
That's okay. Well,
yeah.
It's a beautiful recording. I was just going to say the tone on that recording is like, and I thought it was Martineau. I thought it was recorded before you were there.
It is Martineau.
I stand corrected.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, when you hear beautiful, when you love music and you love the instrument and you're in a position in an orchestra like that, and you hear sounds around you, which you want to imitate. Inside you say, I have to imitate. You know, that's what I told you that 3 months after I was in the orchestra, I went over to Geyer and I said, Geyer, I got to sound more like Frank Brauch. How can I do that? He said, let me see your mouthpiece. He says, I make you a little better one. Maybe a mouthpiece, and it helped. And so you're constantly finding every way that you can to evolve for the better.
Wow.
And when you have that kind of example around you and you have stars in other positions, I mean, Frank Miller, the principal cellist with Toscanini. for the whole time of Toscanini. When he's playing this is just superb music making. The concertmaster who's there when I came in the orchestra was Steve Starrick. He had been concertmaster 3 years with Thomas Beecham in England and concertmaster of the Concertgebouw.
Golly.
And we lived in the same building on the same floor, and we rode to the orchestra, rode to rehearsals together. And he was a little bit of a curmudgeon, but fantastic leader, fantastic violinist. And I called him up one time at 20 minutes till 10, and I said, "Steve, you ready to go?" He says, "No, not ready to go yet." I said, "What do you mean? We start at 10 o'clock." He says, "I don't want to get there too soon."
Yeah, that's why I don't ride with string players to rehearsal anymore.
He said, I might have to have conversations, and I don't want to.
So, Mr. Clevenger, who was on fourth horn when you joined the orchestra? Was that Mr. Brouk?
Joe Morick.
Joe Moore, okay. And what did you notice about Mr. Brouk's playing when you joined the orchestra? I mean, everyone talks about Mr. Brouk. Everyone talks about Frank Brouk's sound. And
that's it. That's it. What the recording that you can hear with Frank Brouk playing is when he was solo horn with Cleveland and Zell. And he recorded Till Eulenspiegel.
That was him?
That was Brouk.
That's him. That's the first horn recording I ever heard of a horn in an orchestra. That was Frank Brouk.
That's Frank Brouk.
You gotta be kidding.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So he came back to Chicago for money reasons. He joined the orchestra at WGN, which is Channel 9.
Yes.
And they had a full orchestra. And he was solo horn, and it was a better job financially. At about the same time he was in Channel 9, Farkas was in the Chicago Symphony. And of course, Farkas got all the notoriety. And the notoriety that he got is justified, because he was a wonderful guy, wonderful horn player, wonderful musician, and he was in Chicago Symphony. But Frank Brouk was in WGN. It didn't get nearly the notoriety. But Frank Brouk played equally as well as Farkas, in my opinion. But nobody knew that. But he was a very modest man. When I joined the orchestra, there were at least 20 Czechoslovakian musicians who had immigrated. So I heard Czech language spoke all the time.
Wow.
Brouk in my section and Morek, and they talked Czech.
How did he talk about articulations? What did he call them? He called them rabbit pellets.
Yeah, Jakubowski.
Jakubowski.
I said, "What's that?" He said, "Rabbit pellets."
And then he also talked about tone as being, like someone asked, "Frank, how do you get such a great sound?" And he said, "Mushrooms and beer."
Yeah. Well, Frank Brouk started as a young man on trombone. So he had a beautiful sound on trombone. Some people have a naturally beautiful sound, but when they start, and some have to try to get it, try to work it up. And I was one of those who had to try to make mine better. But in any case, whatever is good around you, whatever is wonderful, inspiring, musically and instrumentally, you imitate that. And when you're in a big orchestra, it's inevitable. If you've got any brains at all, you will imitate the best of what you hear.
Yeah. And
then we kept on auditioning and gradually filling the section with people who are, in the case of Dan Gingrich, he's still there today. He will have played longer than I did. And he played every position officially in the horn section, I think, except second. And yet he was one of the best second horn players that I ever had next to me.
I think Bernstein called him the best low horn player he'd ever heard.
And he's absolutely right.
Yeah, he said Bernstein, when he recorded Shostakovich 7, I think he said, "That's the best low horn player I've heard in my life." And he tried to recruit him to go to New York, didn't he?
Well, I don't know if he was still in New York at the time, but anyway, that's gradually you build a section and you try to fill the empty spots with people who are who are, one, nice human beings, two, wonderful musicians, three, excellent instrumentalists. Because you're married, in a sense, you're married to these people. You're with them 24, 5 hours a week or longer.
Yeah.
And, it's very important. I was just thinking today about taking an audition. A lot of students, they don't realize how, when they make an audition, when they win an audition, how much it's going to change their lives. I mean, you could say, well, that's obvious they're going to change their life, of course, but how much it's going to change your life. I moved from New York to Chicago permanently, never moved back to New York. I'm now playing in one of the world's top orchestras, if not the best. That's arbitrary. That's an opinion about who's the best, but a lot of conductors thought it was the best because they wanted to conduct us and they wanted to record with us.
Yeah.
So,
could I show a little book real quick? This is a season with Schulte. Do you remember that book?
Yeah.
There's a nice interview with you, and it talks about you as being a 33-year-old, and when you recorded this interview. But I would love to just talk a little bit about this moment. There's like this paragraph where it talks about the devotion to detail that Clevenger thinks makes the Chicago Symphony unique and makes the horn section within the symphony so singular. There's nothing about blowing it that's different, he says of the French horn in the orchestra. It's the attention to detail that the general level of player an orchestra has. The attention to fine detail and the fact that it's on a little higher musical level than most other orchestras. There are horn players in the orchestra who have just as much technique, who have just as much technique. But the combination of sound that we get in the orchestra, well, that's because we work well together at the kind of sound that we have in the horn section and in the brass in general. So I'll just stop there. But it goes on, to just talk about the style of Chicago Symphony and what makes the horn section so special. And what I loved in that reading is that you said the attention to detail and then working together as a team.
Well, as we've found out recently, because Herset's son has given his journal to John Hagstrom, and John told me, he said, from before Herset ever got in the Chicago Symphony, he was writing in a journal every detail that he could think of, musically and technically, about music and about the trumpet. Very detailed. And he did that all his career. And it's so obvious when you hear him play, because almost nothing was ever out of place. You never question, well, why is he doing that? Or, oh, that's a little bit strange. Never. It was always the right thing or a right thing, whatever that is. And, the brass world knew it. They were aware of it. Trumpet players all over the world, they knew it, and they still know it. Because there's been very few who could imitate the level of excellence musically of Herset. Some of them are coming very, very close, and I applaud them. And if they can do it, great. But I sat there every day with him sitting right behind me, and I tried to imitate the general musical level that he played. And it was relatively easy, as he set such a fine example. But, you play and you just hope that you're doing the best thing for the orchestra.
Wow. The greater good of the ensemble.
Greater good of the orchestra. It wasn't about me personally. It was about the greater good. I had so many conversations with Herset at the hall and after concerts on tour when he had a little bit of libation. and so forth. And we were talking one day about the concept of playing perfect concerts, not missing any notes, or being very proud of yourself openly when you finish a concert. And Herseth said, can't do that. There's always tomorrow's concert.
Wow. Yeah, that's always the case, right? There's
So
always tomorrow.
you may play great one night, but the next night there's no guarantees. It's probably going to be just as good, but there are no guarantees.
Yeah.
And so I never ever felt like, puffing my chest out and saying, wow, that's great, blah blah blah. I just hoped that it was somewhere close to this wonderful level that Chicago, this very high level that achieved musically.
Could you describe Mr. Herseth's sound and Mr. Herseth's playing?
Perfect. What else can I say?
Yeah.
His sound was fitting for whatever composer he was playing, for whatever piece that he was playing, for the concert hall, and the dynamic level was always adjusted to where we were playing. If we played in the dry concert hall, it was adjusted there. If we played in Carnegie, he would open up and it would be, it's just virtually unbelievable. It was before I ever got in the orchestra. It was when I was in the orchestra. It's, in my mind, it still is. Now, and I'm not trying to be overly what's the word? I have trouble coming up with the right word at the right time nowadays, but dramatic. I'm not being over dramatic. He was a phenomenon which, it doesn't exist. If somebody comes close, great.
He helped raise the level of the orchestra. I mean, just by how day in, day out, he brought the standard of excellence and the standard of detail, attention to detail, the quality of sound.
And he was doing that from the moment that he got in the orchestra. Reiner, he told me a story. He said when they were recording Zarathustra, and the trumpet has that octave, and Reiner says, again. This is on the recording. Again. So prepares it, go ahead, does it again. He did that 4 or 5 times. Herseth finally said to him, Dr. Reiner, you can play this as many times as you want to. I'm not going to miss the top note. And I mean, he realized, he thought that he's trying to see if he's fallible. And he never missed it, ever.
Wow.
Not in the many times that we played it, not on the recording with Reiner, not on the recording with Schulte, never.
Unbelievable.
And
wow.
it's just, you hear it and you say, how can it be so good?
There is a quote from, I think probably when Mr. Herseth retired. It's the Chicago Sun-Times, July 22nd, 2001. For decades, Herseth's rich, golden tone and powerful, yet expressive playing were a cornerstone of the fabled Chicago sound. The brass sound that drew worldwide attention to the CSO and propelled the great American orchestra's reputation around the globe. According to the entry of the Chicago History Museum's online History of the City, the CSO, unmistakable sound and high standard of performance helped define Chicago Symphony as a world-class institution. It also made Chicago an international center for the study of brass instruments and performance.
Correct.
So I guess
that's true.
My question would be, how did you see the Chicago help shape the sound of the United States? And how did Chicago Symphony help change, shape the sound of brass playing around the world?
Well, to the extent that trumpet players would come to Chicago to study with him, and his method of teaching was more imitation than anything else. It wasn't, to my memory, it wasn't identifying a problem that a trumpet player had and then working and trying to solve that problem. It was Herseth would put his trumpet up to his face and he would play a certain excerpt, and the student would try to do the same, would try to imitate. It's a great method of teaching. I do it all the time. I still do. That's one of the main reasons I still try to play. But he also was the leader of the trumpets in the civic orchestra. So many brass players would come through, and Chikowitz was a very, very good teacher.
Vincent Chikowitz was the second trumpet player in the Chicago Symphony. In case younger people aren't familiar.
He's a very good teacher, being able to identify problems and help solve them. Mm. Jacobs was the umbrella over both of those. That Jacobs said 95% of most of the problems of brass players and wind players and singers is the way they use their air, their breath, their wind. 95%. The people use it incorrectly. They don't use it. They don't use it. They don't have enough. They don't use what they have efficiently enough. Mm. And there are ways to get you to do that, to get your mind off of supposed problem, but especially playing without tonguing or playing on the mouthpiece. That's one of the reasons I do more and more of those things. I wish I had done them early in my career. Things might have gone even better or quicker. But
could you talk a little bit about what Mr. Jacobs taught with the breathing?
It's all about sound. Everybody plays his or her instrument, no matter what instrument it is, because you like the sound of that instrument, the tone quality. Well, if I were going to be a singer, and I actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually studied voice 3 years.
Wow.
My first, in the 68, 9, 71, something like that. I actually went to a voice teacher because my first wife was a singer, and I studied voice. And if I were going to be a singer, I would imitate the best. First of all, you have to find out what your voice range is. Mm-hmm. And I would listen to people with that voice range. My favorite singer all my career, and partly because of Ohlberg, he introduced me to him, was Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau.
Wow, yes.
And I thought, wow, if I had a voice and if I could sing like that, that's incredible. And there were other wonderful singers, great bass, and because we had so many wonderful conductors who were also opera conductors, the best singers always wanted to come to Chicago and sing. So they did. We had Birgit Nielsen, you name it, we had them. There's almost nobody that did not come.
Pavarotti?
Oh yeah, Pavarotti sat right next to me when we sang, when we did Otello. Sat right next to me. I was, and we'd have chats together. I knew him quite well.
Wow.
We had even sort of made plans to do the Britain Serenade together.
No kidding.
It never happened, but
oh my gosh, can you imagine if that would have happened?
Yeah.
So you said you listened to singers as a way to learn phrasing, a way to learn sound, production, timing, just music, like natural musicality and natural phrasing. And
let me give you an overall statement, which I heard before I even got in Chicago Symphony. When I played 3 years with Stokowski, several times, but I remember the first time he said it, the orchestra was sort of in shock. And he was talking about phrasing and beautiful phrasing and lovely sound. He says, if you want to learn how to phrase, listen to Frank Sinatra. And we all, you listen, here's a man he's 80 years old or more. He's conducted Philadelphia 35 years and Houston many years after that. And he's recommending us listening to a pop singer, which he obviously did, which means he respected what Frank Sinatra did musically.
Wow.
So if there was any dichotomy between, oh, I play symphony orchestra and that's only pop, that's BS.
Yeah.
Because everybody, even now, the guys here in the jazz department, they still talk about Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald. So, as singers, well, what did they do that's different? I've had master classes where we bring in the class, everybody sits around, we put on a record of Frank Sinatra, then we discuss it. Why was that? What do you think about that? Why was it good? Why is it different? Why can't anybody sing like that now? Well, he was unique. Now, there's singer after singer, no pun intended, Joe Singer, who are also unique. You know, I know the story of Barenboim coming home one night and his wife says, at 12 o'clock, and he's been conducting an opera and he's tired. His wife said, Daniel, here's a voice you got to hear. He said, Daniel says, I don't want to hear any more voices now. I'm tired. I got to go to sleep. And it was Cecilia Bartoli.
Yes.
And she finally got him to listen to it. He calls his manager that night, midnight. He says, get me in touch with Cecilia Bartoli's manager as soon as possible.
Yes.
And hired her.
She's phenomenal.
She then sang with us in the three Mozart da Ponte operas in the 90s that Barenboim did with us.
Wow.
And, you know, as I told you, and maybe it may have told you, maybe I didn't, the first opera that I ever played in high school was Fidelio. They had to have three horns because of the big Abscheuliche aria. I played third horn. You know, when a young tenor opened his mouth in the first rehearsal to sing, everybody looked up at this young man, at his voice. What is this? It was like astounding. It was Jan Vickers.
Jan Vickers.
And it was, you know, before he got famous.
Jan recorded with Schulte. Didn't he do? Yeah.
Many things. You know, he became the #1 Helden tenor in the world.
Wow.
I played with him in high school. Golly. I knew nothing. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any names like that. I was dumbfounded at the voice. Now, when you have these voices in your head and this sound, some of it sooner or later has got to sink in and say, I have to play my instrument with that kind of thought process, if at all possible. That's what Herseth did. That's what Jacobs did. That's what I tried to do. And I still try to do. When I play something on the horn, I'm not thinking about the horn when I play. Not at all. I'm thinking about what I'm doing with this phrase and with the sound and the loveliness and the artistic details. And that's what this guy is talking about in this book, Schulte, that you just read.
Wow. Could you tell a little bit about the artistic details? Just what are some of the things on your radar when you're thinking artistic details?
Number one is sound, color, quality, timbre. How does it fit the piece, the composer, the place where we're playing? If there are microphones around, where are the microphones? How are they picking me up? How's my sound? I always go down and listen to the playbacks to see if the engineers have put the microphones in a good place.
Yes, that's in the book. That's the very first line in the book with you. Is you saying the microphones aren't in the right place.
Right. And because I was making recordings in New York before I ever came to Chicago. So I knew something that if you move the microphone around, your microphone is your audience. Wow. It's, and they can put it anywhere around you you want. You want to hear my idea of some of the best recorded horn sound from me is the Haydn concertos.
Really? The Haydn concertos? Wow.
Yeah, because first of all, we were in a studio in Vienna, which from the outside, nobody knew what went on inside that building, but it was owned by Decca, and they had millions of dollars worth of equipment in there. Wow. But when we set up to record, they put a wooden thing behind me.
Like a baffle.
Yeah, a baffle, 5 or 6 feet behind me. And they put the microphones out in front. So the microphones are going to hear the way an audience would. Well, they started doing that in Chicago.
No kidding.
They would put a wooden baffle behind the horn section and put the microphones in front of the horn section.
No kidding.
That's one of the reasons we got a very good sound.
No kidding.
Most people now they have no idea of this because they don't do dedicated recording sessions.
Yeah. Which
you go in and that's the only thing you're doing is recording. But how you sound is everything.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not always perfect, but you strive to make it perfect.
Wow.
Well, the other details are articulation, how you start a note, how you note or a phrase, how you end a note or a phrase.
Yes, that don't shut the door, don't slam the door. Let's give it a newspaper.
Never, no. Farkas called it a bullet-shaped note at the end.
Yes.
And it's a tapered note.
Yeah.
And you always have to plan your phrasing. Where is the apex of a phrase? Where are you going in a phrase? A lot of people play very pretty. They play excellently on the horn, but they don't plan their phrases. Well, because
Mr. Dale, so if you are playing your phrase, some phrases are easier than others, correct? I mean, Mozart, I feel like you can just, it's going there based on the harmony. But say you have a phrase like some of the Shostakovich, dun, 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 some of the Shostakovich lines. How do you decide where you're going to go in that? Because it doesn't seem like it has maybe necessarily like a clear, it's not classically phrased.
I wasn't finished. You also have to think in terms of sequences. So I rarely played 2 or 3 sequences exactly the same. To me, it's obvious. They have to be a little bit differently. All the great singers do them differently. Why wouldn't I? And what is it? I'm trying to think of sometimes. Excuse me. The first phrase, the sequence. You have 2 sequences similar, and you go down.
Yeah.
In the Mozart 4th concerto.
Or the second concerto.
What's the second part of the Mozart 4th? Where one of them you go down.
Yes.
On the first, on the next one you're going to go up to a concert E flat.
Yeah.
Well, they're obviously not going to be the same. And you have to plan, well, how much do I want to go down? How loud do I want this to be? And where am I playing? And where am I standing in front of the orchestra? And what kind of hall am I playing in? There's so many details to think about all the time. It doesn't just happen. You think about them. You plan it. And to the extent that you're able to plan your phrasing, your tone, your line, the beauty of the phrase, the dynamics. Sometimes the only thing that might change is dynamics.
Yeah.
give you a good example. This is a lesson for everybody, a free one that Barenboim gave me. When you play the big solo in the Brahms Second Symphony at the end of the first movement, we have 4 sequences. Da, 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 dee, dum, right? What are you going to do with that? You're going to play 4 bars exactly the same? That's boring.
Yes.
So Barenboim, and I thought my whole career, because we played the piece so many times, what can I do to make those first 4 bars more interesting? But sometimes I would stress, or I would do a long crescendo or whatever. In a chat I had with Barenboim, he says, Dale, listen to what's happening in the basses. And I said, okay. Da, dee, da, da. On the 3rd bar, the basses go up a half step. Then they continue to ascend. He says, why don't you do a diminuendo, the first 2 bars, and then start a long crescendo from there? And then that goes hand in hand with what's happening in the basses. He says everything emanates from what's going on in the basses, i.e. Arnold Jacobs tuba. You listen to them and see what they're doing.
Wow.
So, and dee da da dee da, first phrase. Dee da ya da dee da da da, second sequence. Now, how many are you going to breathe every bar here in the next one? Dee da 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 da. That's also boring. So I breathe before the first one and then before the last one.
Yes, me too.
And how much do you sustain that? I make that decision while I'm playing in the concert hall. Conductors have no choice but to follow me. They can't go anywhere. The rehearsals belong to conductors.
Yes.
Concerts belong to the orchestra.
Yeah.
Period. Because there's so many times they can't change anything once the concert is going.
I've gotten a couple looks from Muti that could change some things.
Well, that's okay.
Yes, sir, Maestro.
And we could have a whole discussion on what makes a conductor great.
Yeah. Yes.
And one of the things that makes them great, in my mind, not only that he moves well, that he knows the music really well, but that he respects the orchestra. He trusts the orchestra's musicianship. Barenboim told me one time after a tour, we finished in London, a big long line going out. We're ready to walk out, and I see a big long line waiting to say hello to Barenboim. And I walk by the door and I wave to him, and he says, "Come in." And he said to his assistant, "Please close the door." And he said, "Dale, we've played Brahms Second now 12 times on this tour." He said, "It has been one of the great pleasures of my musical conducting career to listen to what you're doing each concert, because you never played that solo exactly the same." And that's what he wanted. That's the way he played the piano. And I said, "Daniel, from you, that's a compliment which I will never forget." It was, he said, "It's absolutely wonderful." And that's what I try to do. I don't, even when you're recording, I don't try to play exactly the same. And I may have to choose between 2 very good takes, but, and we would always go in, almost always Hersheth and Jacobs would go in, they go and listen to the playbacks. And I would say to the producer, would you please not use the second take? I don't like what I did there. Just promise me you won't do it. We can do it again. And Schulte would be sitting there. He says, never mind, my dear, we do it again. So you have this communication because they know then that you care about the final product. You don't just leave it to them to fool around with their knobs and make make the recording as good as they think is possible.
Wow.
And there were times when I would say, please use take number 6. It's the best that we've done it as a brass section. My horn section is, this is super. And usually most of the producers would do it.
Wow, that's fantastic, Dale. I love hearing your stories about the times with the Chicago Symphony with Schulte. Could you tell just one of your favorite recording stories, or at least maybe share one of your favorite recordings that you made with the Chicago Symphony?
We were always on the search for the best place to record. And for a while, Orchestra Hall was not the best place until they remodeled it. They replaced the seats, all of the seats, with material on the back seat that did not absorb sound.
Yes, that's super important.
That reflected sound. And then as the closer we got away from analog into digital, they could add a kind of vibrato and a kind of echo effect, which was very much like a wonderful concert hall, which would be Carnegie or Sophiensaal, not Sophiensaal, Musikverein in Vienna.
Yes. Where
we recorded Schulte's second Mahler 5. And so, what was the subject? What did you ask me?
We were just talking about recordings with the Chicago Symphony, and your
one of the places that we discovered is the Great Hall at the University of Illinois.
Yes,
fantastic concert hall. It reminds you of Carnegie.
Yes.
So we went down there several years and did a whole bunch of recordings. Beethoven 9th was done there. Mahler 7th was done there. Blah blah blah.
Mahler 7. Mahler 7 is one of my favorite recordings of all time of Chicago Symphony.
When I heard back, not just the playback, but the CD or the recording of Mahler 7, I said, wow, if we sound like that, if I sound like that, I am very happy. Yeah. This is some of the best ideal sound that I can imagine because of the reverb of the hall. I was playing the same as good as I possibly could.
Yeah.
All the time. So was the rest of the brass section. But they got it. And that's probably an example of one of the best sounds productions. There are plenty of others, my gracious. Out of 700 recordings that, there are lots of good ones.
My
Orchestra Hall was fantastic when I first got there. There's a 3.5-second reverb. Wow. Very few people, they don't remember that. The younger people don't know that. And then when they remodeled it, all that reverb went and it was almost dead. They had to try to put it back. Then when they opened the hall and made the stage bigger and deeper, then they got back some of the reverb that they had taken away. But my first 2 or 3 years in the orchestra, when we recorded there, wow, all around the recordings, they're all Orchestra Hall. They are fantastic. Then we did a lot of many recordings over at Medina Temple, which is now Bloomingdale's.
Bloomingdale's, yeah, I know exactly, over on State Street.
It's crazy.
So, Mr. Clevenger, we're running short on time. Unfortunately, I could go on for hours with you, but I just want to thank you for your time and for sharing these stories with us. It's so inspiring to hear about your career and to hear about the Chicago Symphony Brass. Lastly, there's one quote I'd love to read from this book, and it talks about picking a school. You talked about for the young player, the most important factor is who your teacher is. It says,
correct.
As I tell my students, it's not where you go to college or what department you're in or what subjects you take per se. In music, it's who your teacher is. That is the important factor. Do you still find this true?
Absolutely correct. I will say this as a general thing. Every teacher of any instrument has information which is good and will be helpful. And maybe some of those teachers can be an inspiration. But a good teacher can identify problems, musical problems, technical problems. A great teacher can help you solve them. And that's the name of the game. There are not so many teachers who know how to solve the problems. If I couldn't solve a problem, I'd send a student to Arnold Jacobs.
Yes.
First thing I'd say, Arnie, what's with this? Norman had some students who had little problems, and he'd send them over to me. He says, would you listen? And maybe you can identify something. And I did that. And I could say who it was, but I won't right now until I get his permission. Anyway, it's about your teacher. With most teachers, there is something to learn. They'll be very good. So many teachers have never played in an orchestra, so they don't know how can you really teach a Mahler symphony if you've never played one.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Or if you played it one time, everybody's played Mahler first. It's not the same as playing them 5 or 6 Mahler symphonies every season for 47 years. It's not the same.
Yeah.
And so your teacher is everything. I understand the monetary thing about choosing a school that gives you the biggest scholarship. I have students that are making that decision right now. And I had 5 teachers that I would allow my son Jesse to go study with. And I took him, and we had lessons with those teachers. And I said, if they accept you and you want to go, fine. That list would be maybe a little larger now, but
well, Dale, you're one of the teachers that I look up to. I'm, throughout my career, I'm still learning from you, and I hope that everyone else can really take so much of what I've been able to get from you and share that. This is one of the reasons for these conversations, and I just still find that no matter where I am on my stage of playing, I still learn and I'm inspired by you. So
we all still learning. So am I. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
I haven't arrived. I hear Frank Sinatra and I think, geez, how can, yes, he's dead, but not his memory or his voice or his music making is never dead. Yeah. I had a chat, if I can talk 30 seconds. Are we still on?
Yeah, we're still on.
I had a chat a week ago with John Williams. I just called him up to say, John, how are you doing? Are you staying in? Are you healthy? Are you okay? Thank you for the concerto that you wrote for me. Thank you for what you do for the music world. I think you're a modern day Mozart.
We got cut off with Dale Clevenger. Let's see if we can find Dale one more time. Maybe Dale can rejoin and finish telling us this story about John Williams. But in the meantime, I want to thank you all for joining us. It's just been a fantastic Monday morning with Dale Clevenger. Every time I hear him speak, every time I hear his passion and his joy of music, it's contagious. And I hope you can get some of the same, juice that I get from Dale. I mean, as I said earlier, Dale's my GOAT. He's the greatest of all time for me. So let's see if I can find Dale. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for watching. Luis, I'm so happy to see you. Let's see, Mark Jansen, great to see you too. One of my good friends from Dallas, Texas. Caro Rojas. And let's see if we can find Mr. Clevenger, if he's still on, and so he can finish telling us this story. I'm not sure if Mr. Clevenger is still with us on Instagram Live. I'm not sure if he'll join again, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. In the meantime, thank you guys. Ephraim, great to see you, my friend. Luis, I'm looking forward to hearing your students here in a little bit. We're going to do a live masterclass here in about 15 minutes with Luis from Costa Rica. And so we're going to hear 5 here's Dale. Let's see if we can get Dale to join again. Okay, Dale.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're back. You're back, man.
Yeah.
So you could just finish by telling this story about John Williams. I'd really love to see that.
I said to him, you're like Mozart, your music will be, your melodies and your music will be heard into eternity. And for that, I humbly thank you for who you are, what you've done, and what you've done for me. And you know, he was moved a little bit, but I mean, I know him well enough that I can chat with him. And
you can just call him up on the phone. I mean, you know, and he wrote the warning.
I just called his house. Yeah.
Wow, that's.
So you're about to have another. Are we still live?
We're still live. We're gonna have another a master class here in 15 minutes with some of the Costa Rican horn players, Luis Murillo.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel really strongly about offering lessons and master classes to students who might not have, you know, access to, you know, lessons and ensembles during this time of stay at home.
Right. Bill VerMeulen is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
For whomever he can.
Yeah. I mean, Bill's been a huge help to me. He's also a student of yours, correct?
Yeah. I don't have to say that anymore because he is his own phenomenon.
Yes.
And he's one of those 5 that I said to Jesse, you must study with him.
Yes.
You must study with him. Not a possibility. You must hear what he has to say.
Yeah,
I just got a message from him. He liked our chat. But what you're doing on here is a fantastic service. Fantastic.
Thank you.
It really it's just super.
I really like sharing stories. I like the horn. I like the community. I really like people, and you know, it's a way for me to give back when I'm not playing.
It was never been able to do before now. Yeah. Now that everybody's locked in, and it's really very, very impressive, Dave, what you're doing.
Well, Dale, I would love to keep having these conversations with you, man. It's just every time I talk, I get so excited.
No problem. I mean, we're not close to finished. Yeah.
I'm so excited about this, Dale. And big hugs.
Okay. Can I will go now. You do your thing. I guess I can watch. If I just X myself out, I can watch you do these people at 12:15.
Well, I think I'm going to stop and take a 10-minute break or so.
Okay.
And then I'll come back on live. You can see me teach. But yeah, it's such a pleasure. I mean, I'm so grateful for your time.
I don't want to interrupt your time with them or their time with you.
Oh, never, Dale. It's such a gift to have your time. Thank you again.
All right. We'll talk later. Lovely day.
Hey, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.